mystery-loving folks of the interwebs, I'm Alexa, the resident ooky spooky girly, and boy oh boy do I have a doozy of a list for y'all today. I can't count the amount of times I've chatted about UFOs on here, but today I'm branching out into sky unknown. And while I know what a mirage is, and I've spent my time playing what does that cloud look like, these spottings truly confused my brain. I've got to give an honorable mention to whatever the heck the green thing was in the Toronto sky the other night. Looking, kinda like a green comet that split off, but not really. Let me know in the comments what the weirdest thing is that y'all have ever seen in the sky. And welcome to the top 5 mysterious sky objects scarier than UFOs. In 5th place, we have a Chicago Dragon. Honestly, that sounds like an awesome sports name, and I'd cheer for that hockey team. Okay, I'd cheer for it if they weren't playing the Toronto Maple Leafs. Gotta support the home team first, or else I'd horrify my grandma, and I don't want to do that. A North Chicago Portage Park community resident and his neighbor observed a huge dragon-like cryptid flying overhead while working in their yards on Tuesday, May 18th of 2021 at around 1:30 in the afternoon. For reference, the location is approximately 2 miles east of O'Hare International Airport for folks like myself who need a better idea of the area. The witness, Fred, and his neighbor Roger were outside, working on their lawns. As you do. Fred had said that his back was hurting him, so he sat on the front steps and leaned back, and as he did this, he looked above the neighborhood and observed a huge winged being flying overhead. He stated that it was shaped like a brontosaurus with a long neck, viper-like head, thick body, and a long tail that ended in a spade-shaped appendage. Okay, I like dinosaurs. The bat-like wings extended broadly from the side, almost with the same width as the length of the creature's body. Fred believed that it may have been between 250 to 300 feet in altitude, but it was tricky to decipher since the day was kind of overcast. The creature was dark gray and black, and the wings were definitely large enough that he could tell it had a membrane/skin structure. After both men watched for a few seconds, the winged beast lowered its head and dipped towards the left, flapping its wings and quickly disappearing towards the north. The creature was spotted again in 2017 by a fellow named Sean and his buddies. He described it as being around 7'2" in length, completely black except bright yellowish eyes like a cat. It stood in the Chicago Plaza he was in for about a minute or two, staring at everyone around before jetting up to the sky and disappearing. It made everyone feel very uneasy. No kidding. It only took off after some of the folks present threw rocks at it. Similar to Fred, he described it as having very large wings that he could hear flapping and described the noise as similar to a truck's brakes. It flew up and flew in a wide circle, making that sound once more and then flew off in the direction of the Stevenson Expressway. All in all, I managed to find 162 recorded spottings of this Chicago cryptid. So if you're in the area, look up! In 4th place, we have pictures in the sky. Time to go back in time to July 31st of 1914 in Pennsylvania, when one Harry Huddleston was on his way home from work and his attention was drawn to the sky, where he was startled to see a picture vividly outlined in the heavens of an immense house filled with younglings dressed in white and each one having a black band around their arm. While he was observing, the wards came out of the house in columns of 2, dividing at the door with a column going in opposite directions. Going into more detail, Mr. Huddleston declared the sight he saw was that of a building outlined in a blaze of white. Then appeared 2 younglings, one entering and the other coming from the building. Like I mentioned before, both were dressed in white, although the bows in which their sashes were tied were very different. Alongside the house were apparently thousands of younglings, each smiling. The faces of 2 became so distinct he declared that he would know them if he ever saw them ever again. He declared that the sight was too vivid for him to be mistaken, and he was not dreaming or hallucinating. He told his family but didn't really talk about it publicly until Mrs. Rush Lutz, a neighbor, had a similar and equally remarkable experience that she was explaining the week after at a social gathering. Mrs. Lutz had gone into her yard at 11 o'clock Saturday night to take in the clothes she had washed that day, when she was also attracted by the appearance of the sky. An immense house was shown vividly with an effect that she describes as wind waving through a field, or as a picture would be on a screen if the canvas was being blown about. Elaborating further, she said the light she saw in the sky made it light enough in the yard for her to see to wring out the clothes. It was from an object in the sky that appeared bright and almost as bright as the sun. As she looked across the fields, she could see the wheat stubbles as plainly as in the daytime and every object in the fields. It seemed to start at a point over Nescopec Hill and swing across the heavens until it got to a point near the mountain and would go out, reappear and swing back, and did this 3 times across the skies. She stared at the phenomena and hurried into the house, and was adamant that the vision remained in the sky for 10 minutes or more. The sky was filled with stars, but there was no moon, so when the light disappeared, it was pitch black out. She's adamant that she was not fooled, was not dreaming, and her eyes are not bad. The description Mrs. Lutz gave of the building she saw pictured in the sky and that of Mr. Huddleston were almost identical, and they were very firm in confirming to the press that they had not been simply backing each other's spottings up. They made it really clear. Neither of them offered any solution, and together with everyone to whom they told their experiences with, both were greatly mystified. Still another, Miss Pearl Purcell, declares that she saw in the heavens the form of an angel. She took it as an omen and couldn't get it off her mind. When she saw the strange sight of the sky, she told no one other than her mother, also fearing ridicule. Which is fair. It's easy to label folks who have witnessed the unknown as crazy. Residents from a nearby town the next week declared they also saw strange sights, and in large numbers during the latter part of the week, they viewed the phenomena. The sights they saw were the same as those of Mrs. Lutz. Peter Edinger of West Berwick declared that in the daytime he saw outlined in the skies an exact reproduction of a flag sporting bars of black, red, and a tint that resembled a light bluish green, and there was not a cloud in the sky at the time, and upon going home, he looked in the encyclopedia to see if there was any nation that had a flag like it, but found none. That there had been some phenomena in the sky seems likely, for Scotttown citizens whose attention was directed to the flashes that resembled those seen by Mrs. Lutz declared that, there could be no mistake as to what they had seen with their own eyes. Let me know in the comments what y'all think happened there, because I can't even wrap my mind around it. In third place, we have Turquoise Norwegian light. No, not the Northern Lights. Trust me, I would have ruled this out if I thought that was the case. When I tell y'all I filter through hundreds of reported sightings every day to bring you all the best of the best, I mean it. This is quality stuff. The Norwegian spiral anomaly of December of 2009 appeared in the night sky over Norway and was visible and photographed from northern Norway and Sweden. The spiral consisted of a blue beam of light with a grayish spiral emanating from one end of it. The light could be seen in all of Trøndelag to the south and all across 3 northern counties, which compose northern Norway, as well as from northern Sweden, and lasted for roughly 10 minutes. According to sources, it looked like a blue light coming from behind a mountain, stopping in midair before starting to spiral outwards. A similar, though less spectacular event had also occurred in Norway the month before. Both events had visual features of failed flights of Russian missiles, even though that was quickly ruled out as the case. Hundreds of calls flooded the Norwegian Meteorological Institute, as residents wanted to know what they were seeing. A Norwegian celebrity astronomer, whose name I absolutely cannot pronounce, I swear I tried, pointed out the area over which the light had been observed was exceptionally large, like I said before, covering all of northern Norway and more. Some folks propose that it could be a wormhole opening up, and while that makes the most sense to me, let me know if y'all have any other theories. In second place, we have Swedish ghost rockets. In 1946, just 1 year after the Second World War had ended, a wave of weird spottings in Europe over the Scandinavian countries was dubbed the ghost rocket craze. The Swedish government covered up the entire incident and started releasing information only 40 years later. This supports my theory that the US government is bullying all other countries into hiding unknown spottings. One notable incident happened on the night of June 9th, 1946, when a brilliant light streaked over Helsinki, Finland, with a smoke trail and the sound of thunder. Its luminous trail persisted for 10 minutes, and the same incident repeated the next night. But in this case, the ghost rocket turned and went back in the direction from which it had come, which certainly ruled out the possibility of it being a natural phenomenon like a meteor or asteroid. On June 12th, the Swedish defense staff asked military personnel to report their sightings through official channels, admitting that they had been aware of the phenomenon since May. I tried hunting for this specific event, but I couldn't find any specifics as to what the heck happened. That they covered up, so I'm going to assume more of the same. And that rules out military crafts being involved. On July 9th alone, more than 200 ghost rocket sightings were reported, many of them being described as tubular or spindle-shaped objects flying low and slowly, with little or no sound. Soon the Swedish government established a special ghost rocket committee to look into the matter. On August 11th of 1946, more than 300 reports of strange sightings were observed in just the Stockholm area alone. Soon the Swedish newspapers started censoring most reports of ghost rockets, but reports continued to come in from other Scandinavian countries like Norway, which provided some of the best reports. In 1984, when the Swedish government finally opened its ghost rocket files, researchers found that more than 1,500 reports had been secretly collected during this period. Common characteristics of these ghost rockets that were described by both military and civilian eyewitnesses included great speed, intense light frequently associated with missiles, lack of sound, and approximate horizontal flight, and none of these fit with any flying objects of natural origin like meteors, asteroids, or comets. The interesting part was the Swedish government tried to blame the sightings on the Soviet Union, accusing the Soviets of testing the captured German V-2 rockets, a good diversionary tactic that many folks believed, and reminds me of the American government calling UFOs weather balloons, but years later it came out that the Soviets had immediately moved the captured German rockets to Poland. So, no bueno. 40 years later, Swedish air engineer Eric Malmberg, who was the secretary of Sweden's defense staff committee that dealt with this matter, stated that everyone on the committee, including the chairman, knew that these ghost rockets did not originate from the Soviet Union. I wish I could cuss right now, but I'll settle for "You don't say." Golly gee, I'm shocked. Not. On the other hand, based on the reports acquired, it appeared that some kind of a cruise missile was fired on Sweden, but no nation had sophisticated cruise missile technology in 1946. By the end of 1946, as reports of ghost rockets from Scandinavia began to diminish, but reports of similar sightings from Hungary, Greece, Morocco, and Portugal started coming in, that made this truly a global phenomenon that has not been solved to this day. In first place, we have flying monkeys. Yep. You heard me right. While The Wizard of Oz might be one of my favorite films of all time, heck, I've even cosplayed Dorothy alongside my childhood Toto plush, it Took me a moment to wrap my head around this. Darla of Jacksonville, Florida experienced this event in May of 2017 and it left her bewildered. She was driving on a neighborhood street and the strange animal was above the roadway. She could see its head and it looked like a monkey, but it was smaller, similar in size to like a prairie dog or gopher. She found herself repeating, "What is that?" to her friend that was in the car with her as she drove around it, as it wasn't really moving up there in the sky. Her friend thought it was a possum until they passed it again and agreed that it definitely didn't resemble one. Darla eventually turned the vehicle around and all she could see were wings that seemed too large for the size of what the heck she had seen just starting to fly away. The logical part of her brain took over and deemed whatever the heck it was too big to be an owl, so maybe it was, captured by an owl while it was in the sky. At this point, we've named off every similar creature in the same size range. Darla pulled over to mentally dissect what she had just seen to try and make sense of it. It was a being that was kind of on the smaller size, with a head, a neck, 2 legs, and extremely large wings. If anyone has any solid guesses, feel free to let me know in the comments. She knew that the nearby Walmart had monkeys living in the parking lot after independent owners let them escape, so that added to it but also left her confused. All that comes to my brain after that description for me is like the damn IKEA monkey, but wearing like a Wizard of Oz evil witch uniform instead of the oversized coat. I'm glad Darla managed to avoid any harm to herself or to her vehicle, but I know I'll be wondering exactly what the heck the creature could be for the rest of the night. And that brings us to the end of our list, and I'm glad the scariest thing I see in the sky on a regular basis is a large flock of pigeons or Canadian geese. Laugh all you want, but large flocks of birds flying right at you are freaking terrifying. If you enjoyed today, feel free to give this video a like, subscribe if you aren't already, hit the bell for more mysteries from us here at Top 5 Scary Videos, and I'll see y'all next time, you lovely spooky people.